Welcome to the Node.js next 10 team meeting for 15th.
Ooh.
Whoa, Michael disappeared in the best moment.
Yeah, he crashed, so let's wait for him to get back.
It was the best moment. I'm sure he pressed the wrong button, probably. Yeah. And here's Michael back, yeah. You're muted, Michael. Just stay muted, Michael.
Sorry, just for future reference for anybody on the call, if on that thing that it pops up saying, hey, this meeting is being recorded, if you click on the X instead of got it, it kicks you out of the meeting. So that's not what I expect.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the next 10 meeting for 15th of May, 2024. We will follow the agenda as we typically do. Before we get going on that, is there any announcements people would like to share? I guess the one that's worth mentioning is just that we have the survey open in terms of getting some feedback. So please take the survey. I think we've already been getting some really good responses, but obviously we want to get as broad a set of responses as possible. And if everybody can add themselves to the agenda, that would be great. I'm just going to paste into the chat. So we can move on to the issues that were tagged. The first one is brainstorm deep dives, but maybe we should come back to that one at the end because I could see that taking most of our time. So the next one is discuss initial credit text for ambassador program. That one I have opened a PR in the node repo. So I think we should have any discussion there. There was one comment in the issue about having some text somewhere, but I haven't seen a response to the question about like whether it's a replacement or change to the PR or whatever. But I don't know unless there's anything that you two have to discuss in that one. I'd say we just skip on to the next ones.
No, I saw the PR. I think it looks good to me, so I hope it will. Should we wait till there is a discussion on TSC, or what's the next step?
I mentioned it at the last TSC meeting, and I'm going to mention it again, but we didn't, we actually didn't have much time for discussion last time, so we just said like FYI, I'm going to mention it again this time and like see if anybody has concerns, want some discussion. It would be good to get some more like approvals, so if there's suggestions for change, go ahead and make them, but if it looks good to you in the current form, it would also be good to get your LTGMs on the issue itself, because I think unless the TSC says, hey, we've got concerns, it would be like we might just wait a little while longer, but then, it should be able to land using the regular landing procedures.
Okay. So I guess you will mention it later at the next TSC meeting.
Yeah, exactly. There's one later today, well, after this meeting, basically. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm hoping all goes well. Like, maybe we can land it this week or next week kind of time frame, depending on what kind of discussion or not. Like people may just look and say, yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Okay, the next one is the next steps from the advocacy deep dive. So I think it's probably I'd suggest we wait till the ambassador program lands, and then we can sort of loop back and say, okay, that happens, then it would be like, what else should we discuss if there's anything? Okay. So the next one is a servant. I don't know if you want to, like Marco, I know we've gotten some feedback on that so far, but
Not really, but I guess we will know after this meeting. We will have some numbers. I think it's going pretty well with the like we did at I think around more 50% uh, than last year, plus 50%, which is good. So there is still 1 week, I think, less than a week, and we will have the result. No, it's
Okay,
Wednesday. Yeah, I can't find the date where it closes. Let's see.
Yeah, there was an issue for it. It's probably in there.
Oh, May 24. Okay,
Okay.
so there is 1 week.
Okay.
Around a little more than 1 week. Okay, so yeah, after that we will have the result. We will need to uh, like to we will probably need to have a discussion on the results or how
Yeah.
we want to handle that.
Yeah, I think go through and understand the results and it'll be quite interesting. Okay. Um, I think I would say on the next one is corporate support and contribution. That one maybe we can. Well, actually, I think that one in particular, like there was some discussions, like some Twitter threads about like how can we do contribution, like allow people to get contributions in the project. And so I think that is a good one for us to spend some of the time on in terms of like, should we, and actually there was a couple of related issues, I think, in Node, so maybe it's worth grabbing those. I don't know if you two have seen those. I'm just trying to find the seeing where those, trying to remember where they are. Nope. Maybe finding them. I know there were a couple. I can't remember which repositories those are in. Sorry, still taking a look to see if I can find them. So here is like one of them from the TSC repo, which is Open Collective and GitHub sponsors. Suggestion there. And the other one was like allow collaborators to share GitHub sponsors link. So I think these are related in some sense. They're not necessarily the directly corporate sponsorship and contribution, but it's kind of like, and I think there was a sort of a Twitter thread I got mentioned in where people are like, well, how would we give money to the
Can you
Node
share
project?
the screen or send the link in chat? Sorry, because so that we.
Sure, yeah, I put it into these were the links from the repos.
Okay.
And then there was like the Twitter thread, I can't remember, but it was basically like people were like, well, how would we give money to the project? And like one person in particular was like, hey, well, we'd give a couple thousand, maybe we could convince some other people. And it's like, we know we've got the Linux IT one, but we don't have like a general one that we say, hey, like, let's take some money. I guess like kind of Yeah, this might be related to next deep dive topics because I think that could be like a whole deep dive topic on its own, right? Like, and maybe even specific to like funding platforms in terms of like, should we be doing something on that front to or not? Because like one of these issues made a suggestion, but like when you look at some of the discussion in there, it's not clear, like, that people are like, yeah, we should do this, right? Because there's some challenges around like, well, okay, if somebody gave us a bunch of money, what would we actually do with it? And how would you manage it? And it's like, that's a non-trivial amount of work. And so,
Yeah, also there is this initiative ongoing from the OpenJS about the sustainability program, which is not yet final approval, but is going to happen. So yeah, that also can be a good topic to include in the deep dive, I think.
so which one, the Hero Devs programming,
Yeah,
was it? Yeah.
yeah, that can be a good one.
Twitter thread. Okay, so I'm just going to say probably needs a deep dive. So
Yeah,
I think
I'm
I'll
having a
just
look
put,
at both these
yeah.
issues, and like why I think that the one that about allow collaborator to share GitHub sponsor blah blah blah, it's interesting, but uh, I wonder if we can like because this looks very personal, like it's more one to one, like you pay someone and does the job.
Yeah, one of them
Um,
is like a one-to-one connection. Although like we could still like part of the challenge is like if say a company says, well, hey, I'd like to sponsor some bit of work. I think right now it's hard to figure out how to do that, right? Like, is there somebody who would be willing to do the work? And like, so the give sponsors is like maybe one way where they could say like, hey, we'll give the project some money and then the project can figure out how to do that. But that's not necessarily like the project doesn't necessarily have to be in the way. What you said, like in that there could be like a one-on-one relationship makes more sense, but that the project might still help make those connections or something, right? Like, hey, let's maintain a list of collaborators who are open to doing work on a like on a one-on-one basis kind of thing.
yeah, I guess it makes like we should probably go for both. Like if you want to donate to the project, because like you're not in contact with any collaborators, you don't know like we should probably be looking at both ideas because like this one looks very interesting to me. Like I imagine like I'm a collaborator, I'm experienced I don't know, security, and you want someone that you want to sponsor the project to work on some stuff, and then I don't know you see my profile and you sponsor me and blah blah blah. While with the more generalistic um, like you pay the project, then the project picks someone who's able to do that work. Uh, like,
Yeah, and the project one might be more just like you can use this money for anything, right? Versus the hey, it has to be in a particular bucket or whatever, or I don't know. We'd had like that. There's a lot of things to talk about, sort of figure out on that front.
yeah,
I think us as the next 10 group, that probably makes sense for us to organize a deep dive where we can like we've talked about corporate support for quite a while. And like part of this, like I think this issue is kind of the original issue is more about like how do we encourage companies to directly support the project versus like GitHub sponsors and stuff like that. But maybe they're a bit related. And I think having a deep dive more specifically on programs like GitHub sponsors and those kinds of things would be like that's much more specific. We could have some discussions that says like, should we do that? Should we not do that? If we did do it, what would we do and things like that. So I think on that one, let's leave it as probably needs a deep dive and we can loop back and spend the rest of the time on the brainstorm, the next deep dive topics when we get there. And then the create communications channel to JS newsletters periodicals. I don't think there's no update that I have this week on that one. So going back to the brainstorming the next deep dive topics, that's number 268. I'm thinking like timeliness wise, the sort of GitHub sponsors, that kind of stuff would be a good one to schedule as the next one. But you know, what other ones would we have on the list? I guess the question.
Let me check. So I guess like the hot topics that we will be discussing in the future, I see like ambassador program and like how to get money into Node.js. Like I think the two key points that we want to improve is visibility for the project, like on social media, on like because we really lack in terms of marketing and we lack in terms of money, like ways to get money into the project and to
I
like to
think the
get
other one that's been mentioned is like growing collaborators and like, you know, not just getting more people to join, but also then like, you know, if people join, how do we sort of grow them into long-term collaborators?
yeah, this is like I don't know how big of an issue that is. Like I mean, not getting people in is big issue, but like is retention really a problem? Like what's the collaborator usual lifespan on on the project? Like can we get this number? Can we see how like collaborators how long have they have been active on the project before leaving? If we see that the number is like even the number, like if it's 3 years or 4 years, is that good or bad?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think like 3 or 4 years. It's more like we could probably identify like the long-term contributors who have done like who are active regularly. And the question would be like, yeah, is our conversion rate from like, hey, I did one PR to those where we'd like to be? And like growing people who are going to be the future leaders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting topic, and I think there are ways that GitHub allows us to gather some data on it. And like, I think we can start this by figuring out how to get how to gather the data and what data is relevant. And then I think we can do like a really interesting deep dive to see, okay, look, these are all the people that contributed to Node. Like most average people have been around for X time, they've done X commits, and then we can sort of understand like what's the trend and if we improve it, then if it changes or not.
Right.
So I will start from how to gather the data to check this. I can volunteer to open an issue on this, and if you think this is relevant, and like start to we can look there how what data to gather and
okay.
Yeah.
What do you think it's
That's
relevant?
a good idea because I think involved in that as well would be like looking at like potentially growing diversity as part of that. So it's not, it's like I think I mentioned like long-term collaborators, but it's kind of like growing the collaborator base into the shape that we think is good, right? Like, so yeah, I think but you're right, like have some data would be good. So
we
growing,
We may also want to include also a little bit things outside of the core itself, like for example, working groups and stuff like that, because I see like some people are active there, but maybe they are not doing contributions to the core purely. Like for
Right.
example, the web team, like most, in my feeling, most of the people from the web team are doing a lot of work, but it's different from the core team, purely, collaborator category that we have today. So maybe this can be also a good option to start to understand, things around the project that are not just pure the core and how that people can evolve to collaborators or, or to engage them for long support and it can be, but not sure if we have data for participation in working groups and stuff like that, or if it's even easily achievable.
Yeah, I think some of that, like, it would be work, but like I think the data there, like we can look and see who's in at least the working groups and the teams that meet regularly. It's fairly easy to figure
Yeah.
who's there. But some of the like teams that are more informal get together less often. That would be yeah. So actually, I've categorized this maybe more like building a sustainable and healthy collaborator base. As a like long-term collaborator, just one
Mhm.
aspect to that. Long-term, I added long-term leaders. I'm just putting these in the notes.
On this topic, did we do a collaborator survey recently or not?
We haven't, I don't remember a specific survey to the collaborator, not recently anyway. We may have done one in the past, but like that would be a potential, interesting thing in terms of like, hey, what's your challenges? What, are there things that would make it easier for you to contribute? That would actually be quite a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah. So I think having a survey for collaborators could be potentially good, and
Yep.
we can probably take the one from last year and like change some stuff and see how it goes.
Sorry, which one from last year?
The one for collaborators. I think it was last year. No,
Was
I
there
don't
was
remember.
there one? Like it's
I think I remember we have done it once, but
okay.
not sure.
I'm just looking in the
Maybe
next 10 and see survey.
if not, then we should definitely have a survey for collaborators to see if they're happy and what they would like to.
Yeah, I don't see that here. Like under the surveys, I think we have 2021, 2023. Let's take a look. What was it, the 2021? Sorry, I'm looking. Okay, it's taking some time to load. Okay. I guess the PDF is big enough that it's taking its time. I don't know if anybody else can get there any faster than me, but for me, it just isn't loading.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
guess like even if
yep,
there was or there
yep.
wasn't, I think we should definitely
We should
do
put
it.
one together. Yeah. In terms of relevant aspects, like for a sustainable and healthy collaborator base, I just put down in the notes long-term collaborators, long-term collaborators, future, longer term or future leaders, diverse, any things that just come top of mind that we can throw into the list. I guess it's like supported, right?
Yeah, I guess this data is kind of hard to get. Like, do you yeah, I mean, yeah, that's important.
Okay, so like we've got two like funding, use of crowdfunding as a potential building sustainable, healthy, and collaborator base with some ideas there. Any other deep dive topics that come to mind that, like, I think you've already mentioned the ambassador one, which we did the deep dive. We've got some next steps, so we can, once that first step finishes, we can then say, okay, we've done that. Let's revise, maybe we need another deep dive or not. But I think the ambassador side, we've at least got some stuff. So the next one we plan would probably be something different. But any others that come, like bigger topics that would be good to have like a focused discussion on with bigger group. I think those two are two good ones to pursue, right? So like I'm okay if that's all we have for now. So I think on the, let's just sort of say in terms of like next steps on the building sustainable health collaborative base. So Marco will open issue to discuss gathering some data, right?
Yeah.
We'll it's almost like, would we do the deep dive before or after a survey, right? Like kind of thinking like a survey might be good beforehand to have some data to go into.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree on that. Like, I think it's important to gather some data to do the survey, and like we do a deep dive. We show, okay, like on average, people on Node.js do X amount of commits. Collaborators have been active for like uh, like I think it's important to retrieve data that's easily retrievable, because I don't think anyone wants to start doing crazy scripts to pull data and do aggregation.
Yeah.
But like data that is simple to gather and that is relevant. Like, I think, well, we can discuss what is on the issue, but I think it's relevant to know how long people are involved as collaborators, and like how many commits on average people do. Uh, like people that have done a commit on Node, how many they they do. And I think also on working groups, like people who are, how many people that are involved in working groups are also involved in core, and how long they've been active on working groups. So I think these are the 4 points that I would like to.
Yeah, I think it would be good to try and come up with some sort of picture of the collaborator base, because like I don't think it should just be core. It should be like we have these types of collaborators, right? We have people who collaborate to like one or more working groups. We have collaborators who like just do things in core. And then like, yeah, I think if we gather some data, we could kind of say like, okay, what does that overall look like? And yeah, you're right, us discussing that a little bit and having a picture that would help focus the deep dive a little bit more.
Okay, I will open the issue and we will discuss
Okay.
on.
So then on the other one, brainstorming, like, sorry, on the funding, the use of crowdfunding, what would our next step be on that one? Like, is that one where we just like on that specific, like I could see a deep dive just on the specific topic of crowdfunding versus like the overall topic of funding is a bigger topic, right? And like trying to convince a company to say join the foundation or give some sort of money directly at a bigger scale is different than like, should we use a crowdfunding account? That's a concrete thing that we could dive into. And
Yeah, like if we want to sponsor people directly, um, or we want to have open, what is called open, like the thing that that allows people to send open collective or something like that.
right.
Or like also, like what if two if the project receives money and two collaborators want to work on the same task, like how then there is a like how do you deal with all this kind of stuff if we set up a process, we need to like to make sure that we don't have like people fighting over money,
Right,
etc.,
exactly like
etc.
that. Um, so I could see like we can have a deep dive on
Yeah,
how,
also regarding the spend of the money, it's going to be maybe challenging because collaborators are from all over the globe, so it can be challenging sometime to, local regulations, stuff like that to grant the money. So probably we need some kind of tax guidance for the people, which is not going to be an easy. Well, I think depends on the individuals, right? But just to make easier the life for the collaborators.
Yeah, what if
Another
there is a
challenge.
company involved like Igalia or like it happened in my case with Nearphone?
yeah, like I think
Yeah.
those are
Yeah.
all, I think like maybe the title of it could be, how would the project handle contributions of dollars? To accept of dollar, like basically that I think because like, could we use, if we did use crowdfunding and we got some money, like we do have the Linux LFX account for the sort of from the bug bounty fund.
Yep.
But that one we sort of scoped as like, hey, we've got this and we used it for one case to support like security related stuff. So that's kind of a nice bound of, and we said like, okay, we've got a vulnerability, we need some help to get it fixed. We used it for that. That was really handy to have it available. More generally, what would we do? And yeah, I think there's different approaches. Like mentioned Marco, it might be like, hey, we try and collect a bunch of money and then we contract somebody to do something, right? But there's also like, people who want to give money to get specific things done, right? And like versus just like, hey, I want to support the project in general, and like how and what can we do to facilitate that? Maybe that's a different little funding. But really what we're interested in is funding for contributors, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like only for contributors, and like if you're not a Node.js collaborator, then funding should not apply.
Yeah, although that like there's the, hey, if somebody wants to spend some money to get something done in the project, we
I think it
could like
requires
say,
trust.
was that?
I
Yeah.
mean, like money requires trust
Yeah.
from the
Yep.
project. So
Yeah.
like if you are someone who's trust, it like usually you are a collaborator.
Yeah, no,
Otherwise,
definitely. I'm thinking though that like if there were companies who wanted to provide those kind of consulting services, the project could potentially list those or try and like provide a way of saying like, hey, you want a feature? Here's 3 companies that have collaborators on staff, say, that are willing to have their
Mhm.
people do that. Like that's the kind of thing I could see.
yeah,
I'm gonna,
like that like to go through. I think like HeroDev does something like that. HeroDev does like the project sponsor the company and the company gives back to the.
Yep. I think they're going to give like a percentage of the enterprise sales of what they made for that project they support. So yeah, that's an passive income for every project. I think that doesn't require any additional step.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yep.
that program is kind of like, then I put on the list, like, how would we spend the dollars, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we signed up for it, and maybe I should put, would we sign up
Yeah.
and how would we spend the dollars?
Yeah, I think that cash can be a good option, for example, to founding things that otherwise will be super complicated to founding. Because I think, funding companies, I mean, finding companies to found certain new features can be easier than finding companies to found legacy stuff, or
Flaky test, connect
flaky
the code
task,
line.
infrastructure
Yeah.
challenges, these kinds of things, like, yeah, but not founding, so that kind of things can be really useful if you have this kind of passive income, passive income from the sustainability program, right?
Yeah, I think that like this money specifically should go to this kind of stuff that
Yep.
like nobody wants to invest their time into, like automation of tooling, infrastructure, improving build,
Yep.
all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
that nobody wants to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's like it's just sort of how do you manage that? Like do
In
we
the
just
same
do a
way, that we manage the work, like when I worked on the security release automation, there was like this form that you need to fill with your credentials, and
Yep.
then the TSC voted for people. Like this is the job post. People send their CV, and then the TSC votes. The one who receives more votes gets the job.
Yeah, I think that like because that model I think I understand is as potentially working. The other model is like the more crowdfunding approach where you're like, hey, we'd like these smaller things done, and anybody who says like, hey, I've done something, I'm going to apply for $1,000 or something. Like those are two different models, quite different though, right? So like I think that where the discussion could be like, no, okay, the model we want to do is like we want to accumulate a big enough amount that we can then say, okay, let's spend 20K, 30K on task Y, right? And you're right. Then we could go to the community and say, like, okay, we want to get this done. Here's the budget. What are people like proposing? Okay. So I put I put in the minutes, I just pasted in the chat as well, like some of the things. Do we need to do anything before scheduling that one, or is that like well enough defined that we could say like, okay, let's bring people together and have that deeper dive on those things and see what kind of consensus we have?
Yeah, I guess on the crowdfunding, we can already set up a deep dive and like have people talk about it. While on the collaborator, like improving collaborators, like uh, environment, etc., we need more data before we can do it.
Okay. So basically then it sounds like, yeah, we're kind of in consensus. We would plan the next deep dive to be funding for contributors. And then we can put that in the create an issue, put that in those ideas in the initial issue, in the sort of initial summary, and get planning for that. I'll volunteer to create an issue for that, to say like next deep dive, here's the scope, any thoughts, and then we can start planning when we would schedule that for. Okay, so I'm going to put next steps. Okay. So I think then if we've covered the brainstorm, that takes us to the end of the issues. Anything else that we should discuss, or? Okay, well, if not, then thanks for everybody's time, and we will see everybody in GitHub and next time.